It was so eye-opening to just see what I was making versus what I was spending and where I could cut back, that motivated me. If you don't even know or have an idea of what's happening in your finances, you can't really be excited to plan or set goals or make action.
For some people like me, debt can feel like an incredible weight on your shoulders. After carrying that weight for a while, there comes a time when you say, I'm done with this. On our debt-free living segment today, we're going to interview Maeghan Jones from Atlanta, Georgia. Maeghan and her husband, Chad, became debt-free after paying off around $90,000 of debt in their 20s. Today, we're going to learn how they accomplished this family financial goal and what they're doing with their money now. Welcome to the show, Maeghan.
Hi, I'm so glad and excited to be here, Andy. Thank you so much for bringing us on.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have you here and to have you share this story with us and inspire other families out there looking to clobber their debt. So let's talk about why you wanted to become debt-free in the first place.
You know, honestly, before Chad and I became a family, I just had in my head, I was tired of working and not enjoying the fruits of my labor, so to speak. It was like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and it just wasn't a good cycle. I already kind of felt bogged down at work. So why did I want to feel extra bogged down with the money I was getting from work? And it was just vanishing. I would get a paycheck, especially after that first big girl job, and the money just disappeared to debt after debt after debt. And then I'm left with like zero to nothing, having to do it all over again. And it was just a really interesting mindset to have. And it was very depressing, honestly, to do that and be in a rabbit race, as we like to call it, or rat race. And so I wanted to get out of it.
I like your rabbit race. I think that's because it feels more appropriate, because we're just running around like crazy, like rabbits, trying to figure it all out. And it doesn't make any sense. So let's talk about the debt that you had at that time. Tell us about what this $90,000 was.
So I will say the 70,000 was little old me. Chad had about 20. Bless his soul for still marrying me. But the 70,000 accumulated was I had a luxury car, which was about $40,000. And then I had credit card debt. Luckily, it wasn't student loans. I was able to get through school. But what I didn't understand was the concept of credit cards. I got all excited because they would approve me for these large amounts, and I would swipe, 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 swipe. And I remember asking my mom, hey, Mom, they said I owe somebody. Who do I owe?
I love it.
And it didn't make sense because my mom had honestly prepared me. I had a credit card with her, but I think it just was different when you get on your own and you're not having to pay that credit card, that you're like, wait, what? I thought this was still connected to yours, Mom. I thought you were taking care of it. So I had racked up tons of debt, from electronics at Best Buy to furnishing my new house to, nails, hair, you name it. I was swiping, honey, out of control. And so that's where that came from. My husband had a little bit of student loans and then a little bit of credit card debt as well.
I love it. Yeah. I love that story because that's so true. I did the same thing when I graduated from college. I'm like, well, I'm going to start adulting and just do all the things that my parents did, but I didn't have the money that they did and the financial literacy that they did on how to handle all of it. So let's talk about how you eliminated that $90,000 of debt. What steps did you take once you realized, this is mine for taking care of? How did you do it? Did you guys increase income, decrease expenses? Talk to us about that.
I love that question. It was a little bit of two things. I guess for my personal journey first, I will say I started my debt-free journey before Chad and I even got engaged. So that's good. And what clicked was the Dave Ramsey plan, honestly, was baby steps. And I started with that. I saved $1,000 and then I started snowballing my debt. What was crazy, though, is I did realize I needed to increase my income, which kind of forced me out of the job I had. And so I started side hustling. I created a consulting business. I started Uber and Lyft, selling clothes, bartering, you name it. I was collecting every dollar I could. And then I finally switched careers and got into real estate, which really increased my income. And then I decreased expenses, going out like crazy, eating out with my friends. If I had food at home, y'all better just bring me a sandwich from Chick-fil-A, because I'm not paying $12 to go eat with y'all and then $15 more to catch an Uber to go drink with y'all or whatever we were doing. So I did cut back on a lot of things and started getting serious about where my money was going and what was coming in and what was a priority. And the debt became the first priority. Everything else had to wait.
I love that. Talk to me about those difficult conversations with those friends, because I think
Oh,
that's tough for a lot of people. I mean,
it's
a lot of people
very.
understand the math. Okay, make more and then use that money to pay off the debt. But talk about those difficult conversations with friends where you had to say no right now.
Yeah, honestly, it became more difficult for me because I'm like a socialite. They would just ask me one or two times, and I'd be like, no, I'm not going. But then at home, I have that FOMO, fear of missing out. I'm seeing their stories. But I had to remember, do I want quick Snapchat story of happiness? And then I'm looking back at the credit card bill of why this night cost $100? Or do I want to eventually be able to look at the bigger picture and what is this holding me back from? So it was more the harder conversations with myself to keep me disciplined. My friends supported me, but I don't think it was the support of like being in it with you. It wasn't accountability support. It was just like, okay, girl, you ain't going. We'll see you next time. So that part wasn't difficult. I think the biggest difficult conversation was when Chad and I did get engaged and we had to break down numbers together
Mm.
and look at who is making what, who owes what, whose credit is what. People don't realize that debt also impacts your credit, which impacts larger purchases, your house, your credit cards. If you do get some and use it as a debit, like it just continues to roll like a domino effect. So the hard conversations had to be personal with me and then with my husband, well,
Yeah.
now husband.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
obviously, after those conversations, you guys were able to have that transparency and openness, and that led
Hmm.
into a great marriage now with one kid and one on the way. Is that right?
Yeah, one kid and one on the way. And still to this day, we have like, we could call it the finance talk, and it can be difficult because we're still navigating, being newly married for just 2 years or so, how to still intertwine things and what's a priority, what's not, to make sure we don't fall back into the trap of debt.
Got it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to us about your general income range, maybe when you started and where you are today.
So when I started, I was making about $55,000 at my big girl job. And, back then I thought that was great. And it is, depending on how you manage your money. Sometimes it's not about making more, it's about how you manage it. But then when I got into real estate, that skyrocketed just because of the hard work I put in. And I was able to reach six-figure incomes and continue that. My husband was somewhere around the same thing. And then he transitioned, was making more, about 75 to 80. And then he transitioned to real estate to help me with the business. So now we're both able to have that limitless income potential and continue to stay debt free. So it definitely doubled, more, but I was able to do it. My part, I will say, before we got married, we were debt free on my end before we got married because I just didn't want to take my baggage onto him, being that it was so much, and then expect him to handle what I had brought forth to this lovely union.
I think that's beautiful. I did the exact opposite. I brought a bunch of debt in and then had my wife help me pay it off. In fact, I bought her engagement ring with my student loans. So
Oh
she
my
ended up helping pay
goodness.
off her own engagement ring. Talk about that for romance, huh?
Listen, I was going to say those are the difficult conversations, but you know what? It doesn't matter when you have somebody that you can do it with. You know what I mean?
No.
You just are able to love on each other in different ways and know that you have that same end goal. So hats off to y'all, whatever way you got there, for doing it.
Gotta love the partnership, right? When
Yep,
you get married, it's at least two people to win in the wins and then also share in the losses as well.
absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
let's talk about
Triple
when
for
you
four.
guys were able to pay that off and how things are
Okay.
different for you now. Like, what are you doing with that extra money now that you don't have to worry about debt?
Absolutely. So I love that question. So I think number one, my husband probably would wish we were probably still in debt a little bit so I could spend less. But no, seriously, what we're really doing with our money now is number one, it's investing in our businesses to make sure that they can grow to where we want them to be. We invested in rental properties and now have some passive income. We also invest in what I like to call family self-care. So vacations, mini projects around the house, but also our kids. So we had a savings goal that we wanted to reach, which we did. And now with two kids, we were actually just talking about upping that and like creating different savings and funds for them. So we have some even future goals that we need to start working towards. But that's kind of where the money's going, to enjoy each other, to be able to experience certain things that we may not have before. We just came back from Aruba, and that was Absolutely wonderful. We've been vacationing once a month actually since we got pregnant again because I know I'm about to be on lockdown. Jesus.
Do it while you can, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of where the dollars are going right now.
I love that. So I'm thinking about the different times in Megan's life now. We talked about in the beginning of our conversation you making a good amount of money for what you needed as a young
Yeah.
woman, being like, man, all this is going towards the bills and the debts. And
Mhm.
now you're in a position combined with your husband and your thriving businesses where you guys have plenty and an
Mhm.
ability to enjoy life now. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years with your money situation? And where do you
Ooh.
want to be that makes you just as excited to keep pushing forward?
I love that question. And I used to think that it was a certain number. It's really not. It's a feeling of being able to do what comes to your mind within reason without worrying about money, right? So the other day I was just telling him I wanted to do the baby shower a certain way. And then I was like, do I really want to do it that way? And he had me thinking, like, okay, do you want to do it that way because that's just what you think you want? Or what do you really want? And then plan from there. So I think in the future, it's just about having a safety net times three.
Mm.
They talk about 3 to 6 months, but I now want safety nets for 1 to 2 years or 3 to 4 years, depending on if more kids come and I don't want to work or whatever the case may be. So that's one thing. And the second thing would be to start being able to give back a little bit more. We do an annual Christmas giveaway, but I would love to be able to do something maybe even quarterly or maybe host more events for people and different resources that we can offer and provide because you're blessed to be a blessing. And also travel. Once the kids get a little bit older, I do want to experience seeing travel even more. I want to hit Paris and I want to hit Africa and I want to, do all the things. So that's kind of the vision I see. And whatever dollar sign that is, then that's what I need.
I love that. Good for you. And I love the ability to design the life that's unique to you and Chad and maybe
Yeah.
say, hey, this is what fits best for us right now. So I think
Hmm.
that's fantastic. Megan, somebody's listening right now and they probably have, call it $50,000 of debt, maybe close to $100,000 of debt like you did when you guys started out. What's one piece of advice that you'd leave with them to motivate them to pay down this debt and start living the life that they're excited about?
Yeah, I love that question. And this may sound like a basic answer, but the first thing I would say is doing a audit of your income, your finances, your expenses. It was so eye-opening to just see what I was making versus what I was spending and where I could cut back, that motivated me. If you don't even know or have an idea of what's happening in your finances, you can't really be excited to plan or set goals or make action. So I would say take that first step to just look at your checking account, look at your savings account, look at your credit card account, really dig deep into that and figure out what is going on so you can then start making a change and be inspired and motivated to make a change. And when the motivation dies down, you can look at those numbers again and feel that determination and that discipline to then get that big picture result that you're wanting to have. So get that Excel spreadsheet out or sticky notes or a notebook and start looking at those numbers seriously.
I love it. Megan, I'm inspired right now listening to this. Where can people connect with you, maybe learn more from you, follow you on Instagram, whatever?
Yeah.
Tell people where they can connect with you.
I absolutely am an Instagram lover. So you can follow me at Maeghan Jones, and it's Maeghan, Maeghan Jones, Jones. And then you can also check out my website, meganjones.com/links or, /links. And that has everything from my real estate business to my coaching business to even some videos that I did on a little bit more in depth on things I did to get debt free on YouTube. So you'll find everything there. And Andy, I'm just so glad you're doing this. I think that this is a conversation that needs to be had more and more and more. So thank you for even having me and having this platform to do this.
Thank you, Megan. I appreciate it. And if you guys are in the Atlanta area, check her out for real estate. I think you guys would be
Yes.
hitting it big with Megan. Megan, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You are so welcome, Andy.